Clarissa Johnson stood before the mirror, smoothing the folds of her maroon dress. It was her favorite piece, elegant, custom-made 10 years ago, back when the family could afford such expenditures. The dress fit her perfectly, highlighting her best features and concealing the inevitable flaws that come with age. Today was a special day. Her daughter, Kira, was bringing her fiancé, Vernon Green, an assistant district attorney, ADA, home for dinner. Clarissa adjusted her hair, ran a hand over her locks, and nodded with satisfaction at her reflection. At 56, she still maintained her attractiveness, though the fine lines around her eyes and the carefully concealed gray in her hair reminded her of the passing years. She returned to the kitchen, where a pot roast was simmering on the stove, a savory cabbage pie was browning in the oven, and the table was already set with homemade pickles and salads. Clarissa had been cooking since morning, pouring all her love and hope for her daughter's bright future into every dish. Kira, her 25-year-old girl, had struggled for a long time to find her footing. After college, she had worked as an accountant at a small downtown firm, earning a modest salary while living with her parents. She'd had relationships, but they all ended in disappointment. The men were either unserious or irresponsible. One had even laid a hand on her after a night of heavy drinking with friends. 2 years had passed since then, and Clarissa had started to lose hope that Kira would ever settle down. But 3 months ago, everything changed. Kira met Vernon at a community fundraising gala her friend had invited her to. He had made an impression. Tall, stately, with a strong jawline and the intense gaze of dark eyes. He was 38. He held a prominent position and, as Kira said, was incredibly attentive and caring. Flowers every week, restaurant dates, and gifts. After just 1 month, he proposed, and Kira, radiant with happiness, said, "Yes." Clarissa was surprised by the sudden haste, but her daughter explained that at their age, people already knew what they wanted from life and didn't waste time on endless courtship. Besides, Vernon wanted children, and the sooner they married, the better. The logic seemed sound, and Clarissa calmed her worries. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Clarissa quickly removed her apron, gave the table one last look, and hurried to open the door. Standing on the threshold was Kira, beautiful and slender, with long chestnut hair styled in soft curls. She wore an elegant beige dress and pearl earrings. Beside her stood Vernon, towering in a dark suit, holding a bouquet of white roses and a box of expensive chocolates. "Good evening, Clarissa Johnson," he said in a low, pleasant voice, handing her the flowers. "I'm delighted to finally meet you in person." Clarissa accepted the bouquet, smiled, and invited them in. Vernon confidently walked into the living room, looked around, and nodded approvingly. "You have a cozy home. You can feel the warmth in here." "Thank you," Clarissa replied, slightly flustered. "Please come to the table. Everything is ready." Clarissa's husband, Vincent Johnson, emerged from the den to greet the guests. He was an engineer at the city's utility company, a man of few words, but utterly dependable. He had worked at the same place for 28 years, respected by his colleagues for his professionalism and integrity. The men shook hands, exchanged pleasantries, and took their seats at the table. Dinner proceeded in a warm atmosphere. Vernon talked about his job, the complexities of being a prosecutor, and the importance of upholding justice and order in society. He spoke eloquently and convincingly, and Clarissa found herself thinking that her daughter was truly lucky. This man seemed like a pillar of support, a protector, someone Kira could rely on in any situation. "I've always believed that family is the most important thing in life," Vernon said, cutting a piece of the pot roast. "Career, money, position, all that is secondary. A strong family, a loving wife, children, that is true wealth." Vincent nodded in agreement, and Clarissa smiled tenderly. Kira sat silently, picking at the salad on her plate with a fork. Clarissa noticed her daughter was barely eating, but put it down to nerves. "Tell us about your parents, Vernon," Clarissa requested. Vernon's face clouded over for a moment. "Unfortunately, my father passed away 10 years ago from a heart attack. My mother didn't survive the loss, passing a year later. I have a younger sister, Iris. She lives separately and works in an office. We keep in touch, but we don't see each other as often as I'd like. Family is sacred. Clarissa sighed. You have to cherish your kin. I absolutely agree. Vernon nodded, placing a hand on Kira's shoulder. That's why I value your daughter so much. She will be the heart of my family. Clarissa was moved to tears. Finally, you've found a good man, she couldn't help but say, turning to Kira with a genuine smile. I'm so happy for you, honey. Kira responded with a tight smile and dropped her gaze back to her plate. Clarissa didn't dwell on it, again dismissing it as nerves. Vernon squeezed Kira's shoulder harder, as if demonstrating his affection, but his fingers pressed so tightly that the girl barely suppressed a gasp of pain. I will do everything to make your daughter happy, he assured them. The wedding is in 2 weeks, and Kira will be my wife. We've already filed the license at City Hall. Everything will be formal and beautiful. I've rented out the Obsidian Room and invited 150 guests. Your daughter deserves the best. Vincent raised his glass to the young couple. To their happiness and well-being. Everyone clinked glasses and drank. Vernon put on quite a show, asking about family traditions, inquiring about the parents' health, and promising help and support. He mentioned he could help Arthur, Clarissa's younger son, with an internship at the DA's office once he finished law school. He promised to assist Vincent if any trouble arose at the utility company. Clarissa was melting from his attention. At last, her daughter had found someone who would care for her. When dinner ended, the young couple prepared to leave. Vernon politely bid farewell, thanked them for their hospitality, and invited Kira's parents to visit his place next week to discuss the wedding details. Kira put on a light coat and picked up her purse. At the door, she took her gloves from her pocket, but one of them slipped and fell to the floor. Kira didn't seem to notice. Vernon already had her arm and was confidently leading her toward the car. Kira! Clarissa called out, bending down for the glove, but her daughter either didn't hear or chose not to turn around. The door closed. Clarissa stood in the hallway, holding the soft suede glove. Something inside her felt uneasy, a subtle detail she couldn't quite place. She turned the glove over in her hands and suddenly felt something tucked inside. Shoving her fingers in, Clarissa found a folded paper napkin. Her heart began to pound faster. She unfolded the napkin and saw hastily scrawled words that completely shattered her impression of the evening. Mom, help me. During the wedding, you have to... The text abruptly cut off, as if Kira had been interrupted or was afraid of being caught. Clarissa reread the note 3 times, trying to figure out what her mother was supposed to do during the wedding. Her hands trembled. Her breath quickened. Something was wrong. Something was terribly, terribly wrong with this perfect fiancé and this rushed wedding, and the word help was the most unsettling part. Clarissa Johnson clutched the napkin with her daughter's incomplete message in her shaking hands. Her gaze darted over the shaky letters, clearly written in haste, perhaps in a restroom before leaving the house. She reread the phrase again and again, trying to figure out what her mother was supposed to do during the wedding. Why didn't Kira finish the note? What had happened? Why the secrecy? Vincent walked by, heading to the den, and noticed his wife frozen in the entryway. Why are you standing there? Come help me clear the table. Wait, Clarissa whispered, examining the note under the chandelier light. Vince, look at this. Her husband came over, squinted, read it, and shrugged. She probably wants you to help her organize something. You know how these weddings are. They forget one thing, then another. Don't overthink it. But Clarissa couldn't calm down. She knew her daughter. Kira was straightforward. She always said what was on her mind. If she needed help with the planning, she would have simply asked, not orchestrated a secret operation with a note in a glove. No, this was something else. Something alarming. Clarissa couldn't close her eyes all night. She tossed and turned, recalling every detail of the evening. Kira's strained smile, how she avoided eye contact, how she flinched when Vernon put his hand on her shoulder, how quickly she left, as if afraid to linger even a minute longer. And one more detail Clarissa remembered in the middle of the night. When Vernon stepped away to answer a phone call during dinner, Kira had relaxed for a moment, her shoulders drooping, her expression softening. But as soon as he hung up, the tension returned. The next morning, Clarissa called her daughter. Vernon answered. "Good morning, Clarissa Johnson. Kira is busy right now. She can't come to the phone. Is something wrong?" "No, I just wanted to thank her for the visit yesterday and speak with my daughter." "She'll call you back later," he replied curtly and hung up. Clarissa frowned. Why was he answering for her daughter? Why wouldn't he let her take the call? She tried calling 3 more times throughout the day, but each time she got the same response. Vernon would answer and say Kira was busy. By evening, her daughter's phone was off. Clarissa's unease spiraled into genuine panic. The following day, she decided to go to Kira's office. Kira worked at an auditing firm not far from downtown. Clarissa remembered the address and quickly reached the building. Going up to the 4th floor, she entered the office and spoke to the receptionist. "Hello, I'm Kira Johnson's mother. May I see her?" The receptionist raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Kira quit a week ago. Didn't she tell you?" Clarissa froze. "Quit? But how? Why?" She submitted her resignation, said she was getting married and going to focus on her family. Her boss tried to talk her out of it, even offered a promotion, but she was insistent. Though, she seemed subdued. We were all surprised because Kira loved her job so much. Clarissa left the office utterly bewildered. Her daughter had quit her job and told her parents nothing. That was completely unlike her. Kira always shared important decisions and sought her mother's advice. Something was wrong. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. Returning home, Clarissa found her son, Art, the 20-year-old law student back from class. He was sitting at the table, flipping through a textbook on criminal law, clearly preparing for school. Clarissa sat across from him and looked at her son intently. "Art, have you noticed anything strange about your sister lately?" Art looked up, considering. "To be honest, yeah. She called me about 3 weeks ago, crying, saying something about being trapped. I asked what was wrong, but she got scared and hung up quickly. Then she called back an hour later and said everything was fine, just stressed about the wedding. I didn't push it. And 2 weeks ago, I ran into her by chance near the mall. She was with Vernon. He was holding her arm so tight. When I offered to grab coffee with both of them, he said they didn't have time and practically dragged her away. Kira didn't even get a chance to say a proper goodbye." Clarissa felt a chill run down her spine. "Trapped," she whispered. "Son, do you know anything about this Vernon?" "Only that he's an assistant district attorney. Kira introduced us once at a coffee shop. He seemed too controlling, I guess. He kept monitoring what we talked about, even where we looked. When I asked Kira about her job, he answered for her. When the waitress brought the menu, he ordered for Kira without even asking what she wanted. I was uncomfortable, but I figured it was just his personality. Some men think taking care of a woman means deciding everything for her." Clarissa stood up and paced the room. All the pieces of the puzzle were clicking into a terrifying picture. Her daughter's strange behavior, the rushed wedding, the note asking for help, quitting her job without warning, the fiancé's control, the isolation from her family. What was happening to her Kira? That evening, she tried calling her daughter again, without success. Then, Clarissa decided to take a different approach. She found Vernon Green's profile on social media. The page was private, but a name in his friend list caught her eye. Iris Green. Clarissa opened the profile and realized this was Vernon's sister. They had similar features. Iris's page was public. Clarissa saw photos of an unsmiling woman who looked sad even in celebratory snapshots. Under one of the photos, a friend had commented, "Iris, when will you finally start living for yourself?" Iris had simply replied, "When I can." Clarissa wrote her a direct message. "Hello, Iris. I'm Kira, your brother's fiancé's mother. I desperately need to speak with you. This is important. Please respond to me." A reply came just half an hour later. Let's meet tomorrow at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Dahlia's Cafe on Park Avenue. I'll be wearing a red jacket. Please, come alone and don't tell anyone about our meeting. This is very important." Clarissa felt the tension ease slightly. Perhaps Vernon's sister could help her understand the situation. She went to bed with a firm intention to uncover the truth and save her daughter from whatever lurked behind the perfect facade of a happy wedding. Dahlia's Cafe was located on a quiet side street, away from the noisy avenues. Clarissa walked in at precisely 2 o'clock and immediately noticed the woman in the red jacket sitting in a far corner of the room. Iris Green was about 37, with short dark hair and a tense expression. She flinched when Clarissa approached the table. "Hello, are you Iris?" "Yes, please sit down." The women sat opposite each other. A waitress brought menus, but both declined food, ordering only tea. Once the waitress left, Iris broke the silence. "I understand why you wanted to meet. You have doubts about this wedding, right?" Clarissa nodded and pulled the ominous napkin from her purse. "My daughter left this for me. She's asking for help, but she didn't write what kind. I can't reach her. Her phone is off, and her office said she quit. What is going on? Iris, who is your brother, really?" Iris closed her eyes as if gathering her strength. "My childhood was spent next to a tyrant. Vernon is 3 years older than me. Since childhood, he loved controlling everyone around him. When I was 10 and he was 13, he was already dictating what I wore and who I could be friends with. If I disobeyed, he'd tell my parents made-up stories about my misdeeds, and I would be punished. He was the perfect son in their eyes, straight A student, athlete, helper, and I was the problem child." She sipped her tea, then continued. "Our parents are gone. First our father, a heart attack at work. A year later, our mother, cancer. Vernon was 28 then, and I was 25. He took it upon himself to look after me, even though I was an adult and independent. I've lived in constant fear ever since. He dictates who I talk to, where I go, even what I wear. I had a boyfriend, Oleg. We were planning to get married. Vernon threatened to fabricate a criminal case against him if I didn't break it off. I didn't believe him. I thought he was bluffing. But a week later, Oleg was arrested on the street. During the search, they found a small bag of powder in his pocket. Oleg swore it was a setup, that he'd never used drugs. He was sentenced to 3 years. After that, I realized Vernon wasn't joking." Growing horror swelled inside Clarissa as she listened. "My God, but why do you put up with it? Why don't you ask for help?" "From whom?" "He's an assistant district attorney. Who would believe me? He has a reputation as an impeccable servant of the law. His colleagues respect him. His superiors value him. And me? I'm just his sister, who everyone thinks is spoiled and temperamental. He created that image so that no one would ever question his integrity. You know, he once told me, 'Iris, I'm protecting you from yourself. You're too trusting, too soft. The world is cruel, and I won't let you make a mistake.' He genuinely believes he's doing the right thing. That's the scariest part." Clarissa listened, then asked, "Tell me, what do you know about Kira? How does he treat her?" Iris took a sip of tea and paused. "I've seen them together a few times. Vernon treats her the same way he treated me. He monitors her every move. He installed cameras in their apartment. Says it's for security, but he's really watching her. Kira can't go anywhere without his permission. He forced her to quit her job, saying an ADA's wife shouldn't be doing small-time accounting. He plans to set her up in another job where he'll know all her colleagues and her boss. I tried to talk to her once when I ran into her at the store. Vernon stepped away to the register, and I had a couple of minutes. I asked if she was okay. She looked at me with such anguish that I understood everything without words, but I didn't have time to say anything. He returned. "Oh, God." Clarissa covered her face with her hands. "But why did she agree to this marriage? Why didn't she tell me?" Iris leaned closer and spoke in a quieter voice. "Because he's threatening her. He's threatening to hurt you, your husband, your son. He told Kira that if she calls off the wedding, your husband will lose his job at the utility company. Vernon knows the CEO and can easily arrange the firing. You'll lose your job at the clinic. He'll file a complaint through a contact in the health department. And your son, Art, will be framed and put in jail for a crime he didn't commit, just like he framed my Oleg. Vernon is a professional. He knows how to fabricate a case, what evidence to plant, what witnesses to find. Kira chose to sacrifice herself for her family's safety. Clarissa felt tears streaming down her cheeks. All this time, her daughter had been suffering in silence, protecting her loved ones. But there must be a way out. We can't just give up. Iris was silent, then looked at Clarissa with determination. There is one way, but it's risky. Vernon isn't as clean as he seems. He's protecting an illegal underground casino owned by a crime figure named Sterling Young. He gets good money for his silence. Moreover, he was having an affair with Erica Scott, the wife of his boss, Gregory Scott, the district attorney. Erica recently divorced her husband precisely because of the affair. Gregory found out about the infidelity and kicked her out. But right before the wedding, Vernon broke up with Erica, deciding to marry the young and beautiful Kira. Erica is furious. She has been gathering compromising evidence on him, intending to use it as leverage if he dared to leave her. And now she has the documents, the recorded conversations, the photos, everything needed to destroy his career. Clarissa wiped her tears and sat up straight. Can you connect me with this Erica? I can, but you must understand the risk. If Vernon finds out we met, that I told you this, he will stop at nothing. Your daughter's situation will get even worse. He could lock her in the apartment, take her phone, and completely isolate her. My daughter is already in hell, Clarissa said firmly. I will not allow him to destroy her life. Connect me with Erica. I am ready to act. Iris nodded, pulled out her phone, and dialed a number. She spoke briefly and vaguely, but her contact apparently understood the gist. The conversation ended after a few minutes. Erica has agreed to meet, the day after tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the evening in the park by the fountain. She will be wearing dark sunglasses and a gray coat. Just please be careful. Do not tell anyone where you are going. Vernon watches not only Kira, but sometimes me as well. Clarissa wrote down the meeting details, thanked Iris, and the women said goodbye, each heading her own way. Clarissa returned home with a heavy heart, but also with a new sense of hope. She now knew who she was fighting, and she would not back down. Clarissa spent 2 days in agonizing anticipation. She avoided calling Kira to avoid arousing Vernon's suspicion, but she thought about her daughter every minute. How was she feeling right now? Was she suffering? Was she hoping for rescue? At night, Clarissa was plagued by nightmares, her daughter in a cage, Vernon holding a key he had no intention of using. She would wake up in a cold sweat and be unable to sleep again. Finally, the appointed day arrived. Clarissa took off work early, citing a scheduled dental visit, and headed to the city park. It was early autumn. The trees were covered in gold and orange leaves. The air was crisp and cool. It was not crowded by the fountain. A few young mothers with strollers, a couple of seniors on a bench, teenagers with a dog. At exactly 6 o'clock in the evening, a woman in a gray coat and dark sunglasses approached the fountain. She looked around, noticed Clarissa, and walked toward her. Erica Scott was an elegant blonde in her late 30s, with a trim figure and a cold gaze. She sat down next to Clarissa on the bench without removing her sunglasses. "You're Vernon Green's fiancé's mother?" "Yes, thank you for agreeing to meet." Erica smirked. "I'm used to intrigue. Iris said you want to stop this wedding. Why?" Clarissa quickly recounted the note, what she had learned from Iris, and her fears for her daughter. Erica listened silently. Her face remained impassive. "I understand. Vernon is a master manipulator. He used me to gain leverage over my ex-husband. I was married to Gregory Scott for 15 years. We lived a quiet, peaceful life, but without much passion. When Vernon showed up, young, ambitious, charismatic, I lost my head. He told me he loved me, that he was ready to do anything for our happiness. I believed him. I divorced my husband, destroyed my family, and Vernon immediately cooled toward me. It turned out he only needed me as a lever against Gregory. Once Gregory and I divorced, Vernon decided I was disposable. He dumped me like a used thing. but I'm not the type to forgive that. Do you have compromising evidence against him? Erica pulled a small flash drive from her purse. Everything is here. Recordings of phone conversations where he discusses the casino protection schemes with Young, photos of their meetings, copies of documents about large money transfers to his accounts. This is enough to open a criminal case. But there's a problem. Vernon is an ADA. To open a case against him, you need the consent of a superior prosecutor who has the authority to appoint him to his position. That would be my ex-husband, Gregory Scott, the district attorney. And he won't give that consent easily. He doesn't like scandals that could tarnish the prosecutor's office's reputation. Besides, despite our divorce, he still has complicated feelings toward me. If I approach him with compromising evidence on Vernon, he might think it's revenge and won't believe me. Clarissa felt hope begin to fade. So there's nothing we can do? We can, but we must act publicly. If the scandal happens in plain sight of many people, if Vernon is caught, as they say, red-handed, then a case can be opened through a special procedure without the superior prosecutor's preliminary consent. A simple notification will suffice. The law provides an exception for cases where a prosecutor's office employee is caught in the commission of a crime. How can we orchestrate such a scandal? Erica removed her sunglasses and looked Clarissa directly in the eyes. At the wedding. I will show up there with this evidence. I will publicly accuse him. If he tries to use force, which knowing his nature is highly likely, it will be filmed. We just need to make sure there are journalists among the guests running a live broadcast. Then he won't be able to cover up the matter. Gregory Scott will be forced to support the investigation, or he himself will be accused of covering up a crime. Clarissa considered this. The plan was risky, but there was no other way. What about Kira? She asked me to help during the ceremony. Maybe she wanted me to stage a kidnapping so she could escape. Erica shook her head. That's not a solution. Even if she escapes, Vernon will find a way to take revenge on you, her family. He will carry out his threats. Your husband will lose his job, and so will you. Your son will be framed and arrested. And Kira will be found sooner or later. How long can she hide? And then things will be even worse for her. The only way is to destroy him, strip him of his power, his connections, his ability to harm. Then he will be toothless, and Kira will be free, and your family safe. Clarissa nodded. She knew Erica was right. Running away meant looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. They had to fight. Fine, I agree. What do I need to do? Invite journalists to the wedding, but don't tell anyone they are journalists. Present them as distant relatives or family friends. Make sure they have equipment for a live broadcast. I will arrive at the height of the celebration once the ceremony is complete and all the guests are in place. The rest is my concern. Clarissa took the flash drive Erica handed her and hid it in her purse. Thank you. You have no idea how grateful I am. Don't thank me yet. This won't be easy. Vernon is dangerous. He may try to disrupt the plan if he suspects anything. Be careful. Don't tell anyone, not even your husband, about our meeting. The fewer people know, the better. How do I explain the journalist's presence? Say they are colleagues or family friends. Vernon is unlikely to check every guest on the bride's side. He has over 100 of his own invitees. The women said goodbye. Clarissa returned home with a firm resolve to see the plan through. She knew the hardest part was ahead, organizing everything so Vernon wouldn't suspect a thing. But for her daughter, she was willing to do anything. 1 week remained until the wedding. Clarissa acted cautiously but decisively. The first thing she needed to do was find journalists willing to help. She couldn't approach major media outlets. The risk of a leak was too high. Vernon had connections everywhere, and any careless word could ruin everything. Clarissa remembered Marcus Rivers, a journalist from a small, independent online news outlet called The Beacon Report, who had written an article on local government corruption several years ago. His story had caused a stir, but was quickly buried. Several powerful officials had threatened lawsuits for libel, and the publication was forced to apologize. Marcus continued to work, but more cautiously, choosing topics that wouldn't attract the attention of influential people. Clarissa found his contact information through an acquaintance who had once given him an interview about healthcare issues in the city. The meeting with Marcus took place the next day at a small cafe on the city's outskirts. The journalist was around 30, wearing a worn jacket and jeans. He looked tired, but his eyes lit up with excitement when Clarissa began to tell her story. "So, an assistant district attorney is blackmailing your daughter and protecting an underground casino?" he asked when Clarissa finished. "That's a serious accusation. Do you have proof?" "I do." Clarissa showed him the flash drive. "Recordings, documents. Everything is here. But for this to work, we need publicity. The wedding is in 1 week. There need to be cameras, a live broadcast. Can you organize this?" Marcus pondered, rubbing his chin. "It's dangerous. Vernon Green is an influential man. If we make a mistake, if the evidence isn't strong enough, he will destroy all of us. I'll be fired, the publication will be shut down, and things will be even worse for your family." "The evidence is solid. It was collected by a woman who had direct access to him. She knows all the details. Marcus, I understand the risk, but my daughter is in danger. If I don't help her now, she will suffer for the rest of her life. She might not even survive this marriage. I've read about abusers. They don't stop. First, psychological pressure, then physical violence. I can't just sit and wait for that to happen." Marcus looked at her intently, seeing the determination in her eyes. "All right, I don't work alone. I have colleagues who also specialize in investigative journalism. We can come to the wedding pretending to be guests and do a hidden recording. If the scandal truly erupts, we'll start a live broadcast through our website and social media. But you need to understand, this is risky. Green won't forgive this. He might try to destroy not just us, but you too. I understand, but there is no other way." Marcus nodded. "Okay, we're in. Give me the address and the time of the celebration. We'll prepare. We'll need a cover story, who we are, and how we're connected to the bride." Clarissa thought for a moment. "Say you are friends of my sister from out of town. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it, but she asked you to deliver a gift and her congratulations. Vernon doesn't know all my acquaintances. He won't check." "Excellent. We also need one of your immediate family members to know the plan, just in case something goes wrong." "My son, Arthur. He's a law student. He understands what's happening. I will tell him." Clarissa gave Marcus all the necessary information, and they settled the details. Marcus promised to bring 2 more colleagues, Alexis and David, to ensure filming from different angles so nothing was missed. Clarissa felt a weight slowly lifting from her soul. The plan was taking shape. That evening she told Arthur about the plan. Her son listened carefully, frowning. "Mom, this is very risky. If something goes wrong—" "I know, son, but we can't just sit by. Your sister is in trouble." Arthur nodded. "I understand. I'll be at the wedding nearby. If Green tries anything, I'll step in." "No, Art. Don't try to be a hero. Just be ready to call the police if the situation gets out of control." The next day, Clarissa was finally able to talk to Kira. Her daughter called herself, but the conversation was short and strained. Clarissa could hear music playing in the background. Vernon must have been home. "Mom, everything's fine. I've just been so busy with preparations. Sorry I haven't returned your calls." "Kira, I found your note. I understand everything. I will help you. Trust me." Silence hung in the receiver. Clarissa could hear her daughter's quickened breathing. Then Kira quietly said, "Mom, don't do anything dangerous. Please, I can handle it myself. He's here now. I have to go." "No, honey, you're not alone. I won't let him ruin your life. Just trust me and wait. Everything will be fine." Kira started to cry. Clarissa heard her sobs and barely held back her own tears. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, dear. Everything will be fine. I promise." The conversation broke off. Vernon must have entered the room. Clarissa squeezed the phone in her hand and swore to herself that she would not fail her daughter. The remaining days flew by. Clarissa coordinated with Marcus, ensuring everything was on schedule. The journalists prepared their equipment, compact cameras, microphones, and smartphones for the live broadcast. Erica also kept her informed of her preparations. The woman had hired an attorney, Ken Crawford, an experienced criminal defense lawyer who was ready to immediately represent her interests if anything went wrong. She had also contacted State Bureau of Investigation, SBI staff, who were not close to Vernon and were ready to act if grounds for an investigation appeared. The day before the wedding, Clarissa met with Iris for the last time. Vernon's sister looked tense but resolute. "Tomorrow, everything will be decided. I will be at the wedding. If anything goes wrong, I am ready to confirm all the accusations against my brother. I'm tired of living in fear. Whatever happens, I can't be silent anymore." "Thank you, Iris. Nothing would have worked without you. I hope that after tomorrow, we both, you and my daughter, will finally be free and start living for real." Clarissa embraced her, and the women parted ways. The decisive day was approaching, the day everything was meant to change. The morning of the wedding was clear and warm. Clarissa woke up early, feeling both anxiety and determination. She checked all the plan details once more. Marcus and his colleagues were due to arrive as distant relatives of the bride. Erica would appear at the height of the banquet, once all the guests were seated. Iris had confirmed her attendance. Attorney Crawford would be on call, ready to leave at any moment. The wedding was to take place at the prestigious Obsidian Room by the river. The celebration was planned to be lavish. Vernon spared no expense to showcase his social standing. Officials, colleagues from the DA's office, and influential business people were invited, about 150 people in total. Clarissa put on the same maroon dress she had worn when she first met Vernon. Vincent and Arthur also dressed formally. Her son noticed his mother's tension. "Mom, are you okay? You look pale." "I'm fine, Art. Just nervous for your sister." Arthur nodded. He knew the plan and was ready to act if necessary. The family drove to the venue. On the way, Clarissa held her phone, checking for a message from Marcus. The journalist had written that they were already in position, occupying a table with a good view. The venue greeted them with opulence: high ceilings, crystal chandeliers, snow-white tablecloths, and live flowers everywhere: white roses, lilies, orchids. The arch for the outdoor ceremony was decorated with ivory-colored fabric. Guests arrived one after another, taking their seats and discussing the celebration. Clarissa looked around and noticed Marcus with his two colleagues, a man and a woman. They looked like ordinary guests, nothing unusual. Marcus caught her eye and gave a subtle nod. The marriage registration ceremony took place in a separate room. Kira looked pale. Her hands were trembling as she signed the register. Her dress was magnificent, lace with a long train, but the bride's face was devoid of joy. Vernon, conversely, was pleased and confident. He smiled, accepted congratulations, and held his fiancée's hand so tightly as if afraid she would bolt. Clarissa looked at her daughter and felt pain. Kira was beautiful in her white dress, but her eyes were full of sorrow. This was not a happy bride. This was a prisoner waiting for liberation. After the ceremony, the guests moved to the banquet hall. The celebration began. Toasts, congratulations, music, and dancing. Vernon played the role of the happy groom flawlessly. He gave speeches, thanked the guests, and danced with his bride. Clarissa saw Kira trying to smile, but it looked forced. An hour passed, then a second. Clarissa began to worry. When would Erica appear? She checked her phone. No messages. Marcus sat at his table, carefully observing the proceedings. The cameras were ready but not yet running, and then, just as the main course was served and the guests relaxed, enjoying the food and wine, a woman in an elegant black dress entered the hall. Erica Scott. She walked confidently. Her heels clicked on the marble floor, drawing attention. Conversations died down. Guests turned, wondering who the stranger was. Vernon looked up and turned pale. He recognized her instantly. Erica walked up to the newlyweds' table and stopped directly across from Vernon. "Good evening, darling," she said coldly. "Did you really think I would just step aside and let you forget about me?" Vernon jumped up. "Erica, what are you doing here? Leave immediately." "No," she replied calmly. "First, these people need to know who you really are. They need to know the truth about the man this poor girl just married. Vernon grabbed her arm, but Erica pulled away. Don't you dare touch me. Or do you want me to tell everyone how you protect Sterling Young's casino? How you take bribes? How you cheated on your boss, sleeping with his wife? How you used me to influence the district attorney's decisions? A buzz erupted in the hall. Guests whispered. Some jumped up from their seats. Gregory Scott, the district attorney, sitting at one of the main tables, turned crimson. His face contorted with anger and humiliation. Right here, in front of everyone, his shame was being made public. Vernon tried to grab Erica again, but she stepped back and raised her hand, clutching the flash drive. All the evidence is here. Recordings, documents, everything needed to put you in jail. Phone calls with Young discussing your cover-up schemes, photos of your meetings, bank statements detailing transfers to an account registered to a dummy corporation, but actually belonging to you. Vernon lost control. His face twisted with fury. He lunged at her, trying to snatch the flash drive. Erica screamed. All of this was being filmed by Marcus and his colleagues, who had started the live broadcast. Guests pulled out their phones, recording the scene. Vernon shoved Erica. She fell to the floor, hitting the edge of a table. Kira jumped up, covering her face with her hands. Clarissa rushed to her daughter and hugged her. It's over, darling. You are free. Gregory Scott rose from his seat. His face was red with rage, but he composed himself. In a loud voice, he announced, "Call the State Bureau of Investigation immediately. I demand action be taken." Vernon stood in the middle of the hall, breathing heavily, realizing that everything had collapsed. His career, his power, his plans. Everything was destroyed in an instant. He tried to leave the hall, but his path was blocked by several guests, former colleagues, who didn't want him to escape. "You're not going anywhere, Green," one of them said. "We all just saw what you did. Used physical force against a woman in public. That's a publicly committed crime. You won't get away with this now." The banquet hall descended into chaos. Vernon Green stood in the middle, comprehending the scale of the disaster. Erica Scott rose from the floor where he had shoved her and ostentatiously showed the flash drive to the crowd. Here is all the evidence of his crimes. Recordings of conversations with the crime boss Young about protecting the casino, documents of money transfers, photos of meetings, everything needed to open a criminal case. Gregory Scott's face was livid with anger and humiliation. The scandal involving his ex-wife and subordinate was unfolding before hundreds of witnesses, many of whom were influential city figures. The video was already spreading across social media. Marcus and his colleagues were running a live broadcast, and the view counter was climbing rapidly. "Vernon Green," Scott said coldly, "I recommend you contact an attorney. I will immediately forward the materials to the SBI. Vernon tried to maintain his composure. He straightened his tie and smoothed his jacket. "Gregory Scott, this is a provocation. This woman is getting revenge on me for ending our relationship. Everything she is saying is lies and libel." "Lies?" Erica held the flash drive higher. "Then why did you try to snatch this flash drive from me? Why did you shove me? All of this has been recorded on dozens of cameras." Indeed, half the guests were holding up their phones, filming the scene. Vernon realized denial was useless. He cast a malevolent glance at Erica, then at Kira, who sat at the table, embraced by her mother. "If you set this up, you will regret it," he hissed through clenched teeth, glaring at his fiancée. "No," Kira answered softly but firmly. "The only thing I regret is not finding the courage to stand up to you sooner." Vernon turned sharply and swiftly left the hall. Several of his colleagues followed him, seemingly to gauge the seriousness of the situation. Gregory Scott approached Erica. "Hand me that flash drive, Erica. I will personally ensure its security before transferring it to the investigators." "No," Erica replied firmly. "Tomorrow morning, I will personally present all the materials to the SBI. I have a copy, so you don't need to worry." Scott pursed his lips but nodded. He understood his own reputation was hanging by a thread. His ex-wife's affair with his subordinate, corruption within his own office, all of it cast a shadow over his career. He needed to act quickly and decisively to show he did not cover for criminals. Clarissa Johnson did not let go of her daughter, stroking her head and whispering comforting words. Kira was shaking, even though the hall was warm. The shock, the pent-up tension of the last few months, it was all pouring out. "Mommy, is it really over? He can't hurt me anymore?" "Yes, honey. Now he answers for his own crimes. You are free." Vincent and Arthur stood nearby, stunned but ready to offer support. Marcus Rivers approached Clarissa and showed her his phone screen. The broadcast had reached over 50,000 views. National media outlets were already picking up the story. "Green won't be able to sweep this under the rug," Marcus stated. Clarissa nodded, her eyes fixed on her daughter. "Thank you. None of this would have been possible without your help." Iris Green, Vernon's sister, approached the newlyweds' table. Her face was wet with tears, but in her eyes, for the first time in years, there was something like relief. "Kira, I'm so sorry. I should have stopped him earlier. I was scared. I was a coward." Kira reached out and squeezed Iris's hand. "You did help. You connected my mother with Erica. Without you, we wouldn't have known the truth. Thank you." Iris stood there, tearful, and Clarissa embraced both women. They were all Vernon's victims, and now they were all finding their freedom. The guests gradually began to leave. The celebration was ruined, but no one judged the bride or her family. On the contrary, many approached them, offering support, saying Kira had done the right thing by refusing to be intimidated. Some women confessed that they, too, had once been in similar situations and understood what Kira had gone through. The Johnson family left the Obsidian Room late that evening. Kira went home with her parents. At home, Clarissa tucked her daughter into her old room, the one she had lived in before meeting Vernon. "Sleep, my girl. The worst is behind you." "Mom, what happens tomorrow? He won't just stop. He might—" "No, Kira. Things are different now. The SBI will handle his case. Most importantly, the whole city, the whole country, knows about his crimes. He can no longer hide behind his official position." Kira closed her eyes, and Clarissa felt her daughter gradually falling asleep. She kissed her on the forehead and quietly left the room. Her husband was waiting for her in the living room. "Vince, can you believe what she went through? Our girl endured that nightmare to protect us." Vincent hugged his wife, holding her close. "You saved her. You're an incredible woman, Clarissa. I'm proud of you." The next morning, the news of the scandal at the ADA's wedding was on the front pages of all regional newspapers and trending on national news sites. The video from the event garnered over 1 million views. The public demanded an immediate investigation. Support groups for Kira were created on social media. Women shared their stories of domestic abuse and psychological pressure. Erica Scott, as promised, appeared at the SBI office at 10 o'clock in the morning. She brought the flash drive with the compromising evidence, along with a written statement detailing Vernon Green's crimes. She was received by Senior Special Agent Vincent Lewis and his assistants. The materials were examined immediately. The recorded phone conversations, where Green discussed schemes to cover up illegal activities with the underground casino owner, Sterling Young. Photos of meetings at restaurants and cafes, bank statements showing regular transfers of large sums into an account registered to a third party, but effectively belonging to Green. Everything was thoroughly documented. Erica had been preparing for this moment for months. In addition to Erica's evidence, testimony was provided by Iris Green, who gave a detailed account of her brother's controlling nature and his methods of intimidation. She also provided information about several other instances where Vernon had used his official position for personal gain. By lunchtime, the SBI leadership decided to open a criminal case. Since the matter involved an assistant district attorney, the procedure required a special approach. Typically, opening a case against a prosecutor's office employee requires the consent of the superior prosecutor who has the authority to appoint the prosecutor in question. However, there was a special procedure. A section of the law provided an exception. If a prosecutor is caught in the commission of a crime, a criminal case can be opened without obtaining preliminary consent. Vernon's actions at the wedding, the use of physical force against Erica, the attempt to seize evidence, and the threats against his ex-fiancée in front of hundreds of witnesses and dozens of cameras qualified as being caught in the act of committing a crime. The SBI sent notification to the U.S. Attorney's Office that a criminal case was being opened against Vernon Green, Assistant District Attorney. The criminal case was opened on charges of receiving bribes in large amounts, abuse of official power, and organizing illegal gambling activity. Gregory Scott publicly stated that he fully supported the investigation and would not obstruct the SBI's work. He also ordered an internal review within the DA's office to identify any possible accomplices of Green. However, when investigators arrived at Vernon's residence to conduct a search and present the charges, he was not there. The apartment was empty. Neighbors reported seeing Green leave early that morning with a large travel bag and drive away in a taxi. It was later revealed that he had withdrawn large sums of cash from all his accounts. Vernon was placed on a nationwide wanted list. A travel ban was issued, but by then, he had already managed to leave the country. According to some reports, he flew by private jet to an island nation that did not have an extradition treaty with the United States. Rumors circulated that he had connections with corrupt officials who helped him escape. He might have bought his way out, transferring some of his illegally acquired funds to those who could secure his getaway. The investigation continued. Sterling Young, the owner of the underground casino, was detained. During the search, documents confirming his connection to Green were seized. Young began to give evidence, hoping for leniency. He confirmed that he regularly paid Vernon for protection and named specific amounts. Kira filed for divorce. Given the circumstances and the fact that the defendant's whereabouts were unknown, the court decided to review the case in absentia. The marriage was dissolved 1 month later. Kira received her divorce certificate and felt a huge weight lift from her shoulders. 3 months passed since that memorable wedding. Life was gradually returning to normal. Kira found a new job at a major auditing firm where her professionalism was highly valued. The management knew her story. The scandal was too big to miss. But this was not an obstacle to employment. On the contrary, many admired her courage. Colleagues treated Kira with respect and delicacy. No one asked intrusive questions or discussed her past behind her back. Her department manager, Ms. Sharon, a woman in her late 50s with a wise gaze, invited Kira for a talk one day. "Kira, I want you to know you are safe here. If you ever need support, help, or just someone to talk to, I am always ready to listen. You are a strong young woman, and I believe everything will work out for you." Kira thanked her, and at that moment she felt like she was truly starting a new life. She enjoyed the work. It distracted her from heavy thoughts. She analyzed financial reports, conducted audits, and interacted with clients. Gradually, her self-confidence returned, but she still had nightmares at night. Vernon would appear in her dreams, threatening and pursuing her. Kira would wake up in a cold sweat, grab her phone, and check the news to see if he had been found or if he had returned. The fear had not completely let go of her yet. Clarissa Johnson insisted that her daughter start seeing a therapist. Kira initially resisted, thinking she could handle it herself, but her mother was firm. The first visit to the specialist was difficult. Kira sat in the office, unsure where to start, feeling vulnerable and weak. But the therapist, Dr. Elaine Foster, an experienced woman in her early 50s, managed to put her at ease. "Kira, what happened to you is not your fault. You were the victim of a manipulator and an abuser. Many women go through similar experiences. The important thing is not to get stuck in the past, but to learn to live on, to trust yourself and others." The sessions took place once a week. Gradually, Kira began to open up, talking about her fears, about how Vernon controlled her life, how she lost herself, becoming a shadow. Dr. Foster helped her realize that the way out of the situation was not through flight or submission, but through fighting. And Kira fought. She won. Clarissa continued working at the community health clinic. Colleagues often approached her, praising her courage and asking for advice. It turned out that many had faced similar situations in their own families, but hadn't dared to act. Clarissa always gave the same answer: never be silent. If you or your loved ones are in danger, seek help. Contact the police, lawyers, therapists. Don't be afraid of exposure. Silence is the price we pay for ruined lives. Arthur successfully passed his exams and threw himself into his studies with even greater fervor. The story with Green completely changed his understanding of law. He realized that the law was not just a set of rules, but a tool for protecting the weak from the powerful. He decided to specialize in criminal law and planned to work hard after graduation to become a defense attorney, helping those who could not protect themselves. Iris Green moved to a neighboring city. She got a job as a manager at a construction company, rented a small apartment, and began to live independently. For the first time in many years, she felt free. The connection with her brother was completely severed. Iris maintained a relationship with Kira. They sometimes called each other, sharing news. Both understood they had suffered trauma, and mutual support helped them move forward. Erica Scott sold her city apartment and bought a small house in the suburbs. She took up something she had long dreamed of, but never dared: painting. Her canvases were bright and emotional, as if she were pouring out all her past feelings onto the surface. A local gallery agreed to exhibit several works, and they unexpectedly found buyers. Erica felt that she was finally living for herself, not for someone else. Gregory Scott, Erica's ex-husband, was going through a difficult time. The scandal with Green and the public discussion of his family life dealt a blow to his reputation. Although he publicly supported the investigation and even received praise from his superiors for his principled stance, he felt bitterness and loneliness deep down. The divorce from Erica had freed him formally, but emotionally, it had emptied him. He lived alone in a large apartment that used to be full of life and now felt like a museum. In the evenings, he would sit by the window with a glass of brandy, looking at the city lights and thinking about what he had missed. Erica wasn't a perfect woman, but she was his wife, and he hadn't managed to save their family. He hadn't noticed how his wife had drifted away, how a void had appeared in their relationship that Green had filled. Gregory tried to immerse himself in work, but found less and less meaning in it. He realized he had lived his life serving the law, but had forgotten about the living person next to him who needed attention and care. Sometimes he would dial Erica's number but hang up, unable to bring himself to call. What could he say? Apologize for what? For being busy with work? For not noticing her suffering? Words felt powerless. One day, he stumbled upon an advertisement for an exhibition at the Suburban Gallery. He saw the artist's name, Erica Scott. He drove there, not knowing why. He entered the gallery and saw her paintings. They were full of pain, but also hope. Bright brushstrokes, bold colors. He realized he hadn't known this woman. He had lived with her for 15 years and hadn't known she could feel and express herself this way. Erica was there talking with visitors. Seeing him, she froze. They looked at each other for a few seconds. Then she approached him. "Gregory?" "Erica, I just wanted to see. It's beautiful." "Thank you." They were silent. Then Gregory quietly said, "I'm sorry. I was a terrible husband. I didn't pay attention to you. I didn't notice you were suffering. I am to blame for our family falling apart." Erica looked at him sadly. "Gregory, we are both to blame. I didn't fight for our marriage either. I didn't tell you I was unhappy. I just left. But now I understand that wasn't the way out. We should have talked, tried to understand each other, but we didn't." "Maybe we could try again?" Erica shook her head. "No, Gregory. We have both changed. We are different people now. You found meaning in your work. I found it in art. But we can remain friends, good acquaintances, without bitterness or hurt." Gregory Scott nodded. He understood she was right. Some things cannot be brought back. He said goodbye and left. At home, he sat by the window, but this time he didn't pour a brandy. He just looked at the city and thought that life goes on, and he too needed to learn how to live anew. As for Vernon Green, he was never found. The international manhunt continued. Interpol included him on their wanted list, but there were no results. According to rumors, he was hiding in an Arab country under a new name. Perhaps he bought off the local authorities, or perhaps he found influential protectors. No one knew for sure, but for Kira and her family, it no longer mattered. The main thing was that he could no longer harm them. His career was destroyed, his connections severed, and his reputation ruined. One late autumn evening, Kira stayed late at work. She was preparing the annual report for a major client, sitting at her computer, when a new colleague, Andre Kelly, a marketing specialist who had joined the team a month ago, peered into the office. He was average height, with a pleasant appearance, dark curly hair, and kind brown eyes that held genuine sincerity. "Kira, are you still working? It's 9 o'clock already." She looked up and smiled tiredly. "The report is due the day after tomorrow. I want to finish the main part today." "Can I help? I'm pretty good with Excel and I'm decent with statistics." "Thank you, but I'm almost done." Andre didn't leave. He stood by the door, then said decisively, "Kira, I've been wanting to ask you out for coffee for a few weeks, but I kept putting it off. Maybe we could go somewhere after work. Just to talk, to connect. No strings attached." Kira froze. Two feelings warred within her: fear of new relationships, fear of falling into a trap again, fear of trusting someone only to be used again, and the desire to be normal, to open up, to feel warmth, to try believing in people again. She looked at Andre carefully. He stood calmly, without tension, without that predatory gaze Vernon had. He was simply waiting for an answer, neither pressuring nor demanding. In his eyes was genuine interest, not invasiveness. "All right," Kira finally said. "Coffee would be nice." Andre beamed. "Perfect. I'll wait for you by the exit." Kira finished the last lines of the report, saved the file, and shut down the computer. She put on her coat, grabbed her bag, and went downstairs. Andre was waiting for her in the lobby, scrolling through his phone. Seeing her, he smiled and held the door open. It was cool outside, smelling of autumn leaves. They walked a couple of blocks to a small cafe that stayed open late. Inside, it was cozy, with quiet music playing and warm lamps glowing. They ordered cappuccinos and pastries. The conversation flowed easily. Andre talked about his job, how he got into marketing after several years in an advertising agency. He was interested in photography, showing Kira pictures on his phone, cityscapes, portraits of strangers, sunsets. He also enjoyed bike rides. Kira talked about her work, her colleagues, how she liked delving into numbers and documents, finding errors and discrepancies. Andre listened attentively, asked questions, and laughed at her jokes. Kira felt the tension gradually leaving, felt herself relaxing. When it was time to say goodbye, Andre walked her to the bus stop. "Thanks for the evening, Kira. I really enjoyed it." "Me too," she replied, and it was true. "Maybe we could do it again sometime? This weekend, for example. We could go to a museum or an exhibition." Kira paused. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately, but another part warned her, reminding her of the pain, the betrayal, how easily she could misjudge a person. "Andre, I need to think about it." "Of course." He didn't pressure her. "No pressure. When you're ready, let me know." He waved goodbye and left. Kira got on the bus and looked out the window the whole way home, thinking, maybe this was the beginning of something good. Not now, not immediately. But gradually, step by step, she could learn to trust again. Time heals, and she was ready to give herself that time. Several more months passed. Spring arrived. The city was filled with light and warmth. Kira and Andre continued to see each other, but without rush, without obligations. They went to museums, walked along the waterfront, and rode bikes out of the city. Andre never asked intrusive questions about her past, though he surely knew. The story with Green was too loud to miss. One day, they were sitting on a park bench, watching children play on the playground. A spring breeze rustled the new leaves on the trees. A street musician was playing somewhere in the distance. "Kira," Andre began, "I want to tell you something." I understand you've had a difficult past. You don't talk about it, and I won't push. But I want you to know I don't need promises, vows, or commitments. I just want to be around. We can move as slowly as you are comfortable with, without pressure." Kira felt tears welling up in her eyes. She turned to him. "Andre, you are a very good man, but I'm afraid to make a mistake again, afraid to trust the wrong person again, afraid to lose myself." He took her hand in his. "I understand, and it's okay to be afraid. But you know what I think? Fear shouldn't run our lives, or we'll just stop living. I'm not asking you to trust me now. I'm asking you to give us a chance to get to know each other. Just be around, and we'll see what happens." Kira wiped a tear and smiled. "Okay, let's try." From that day on, their relationship grew warmer. They saw each other more often, talked more, and shared thoughts and feelings. Kira gradually opened up, talking about her fears and what she had gone through. Andre listened, never interrupting, never judging, just offering support. One day, Kira invited him to meet her parents. Clarissa Johnson was wary of Andre. She feared her daughter would fall into a trap again. But Andre managed to win her over. He was polite, sincere, and didn't try to impress. He was just himself. They talked about work, life, and plans. Clarissa saw Kira look at him with trust, interest, and warmth, and that calmed her. After dinner, when Andre had left, Clarissa sat next to her daughter. "He's a good man, honey. He seems decent, but the main thing is, don't rush. Let everything take its natural course." "I know, Mom. I'm not rushing. I need time to learn to trust again. But I feel safe with him. He doesn't pressure me or demand anything. He's just there." Clarissa hugged her daughter. "Then everything is right. Time is the best healer." In parallel with her personal life, Kira continued to develop professionally. She was promoted to senior auditor, entrusted with more complex projects. She traveled for work, audited major companies, and compiled reports. The work brought satisfaction and a sense of self-worth. Psychotherapy also continued. Dr. Foster noted the progress. "Kira, you have done tremendous work on yourself. You have learned not to blame yourself, learned to recognize manipulation, and learned to say no. These are important steps. But remember, healing is not a destination. It is a journey. There will be setbacks. There will be hard days. That is normal." "I understand. Sometimes I still have nightmares. Sometimes I flinch when someone raises their voice. But it's happening less often now." "That's excellent. Keep going." Meanwhile, Iris Green got married. She met Paul, a quiet, calm engineer who genuinely loved her and didn't try to control her. Kira was invited to the wedding. The ceremony was modest, in a circle of close friends and relatives. No pompous speeches, no showy toasts. Just people who loved each other and were happy for the newlyweds. Kira congratulated Iris. They hugged, and both felt the circle close. They had transformed from victims into victors, from broken into strong women. Erica Scott opened her own gallery in the suburbs. Her paintings became popular. She was written about in local media. She too found her happiness in creativity, in freedom, in the ability to live the way she wanted. And Kira found her future. Gradually, step by step, she learned to live again. She learned not to be afraid, learned to trust people again, and learned to love herself. 1 year passed since the day Kira's life turned upside down. She was sitting in the therapist's office for her final session. Dr. Foster smiled. "Kira, I think you're ready to complete therapy. You've done enormous work. You succeeded." "Thank you. I couldn't have done it without your help." "You could have. It just would have taken longer. But remember, if you ever feel you need support again, the doors are always open." Kira left the office with a light heart. Andre was waiting for her in the car outside. They had planned to drive out of the city to enjoy nature. They drove along a scenic road past fields and forests, listening to music and talking about plans. "Andre, I want to say thank you," Kira said, "for being there, for your patience, for not rushing me. You don't have to thank me. I just did what felt right." They arrived at a lake, spread a blanket on the shore, and took out a thermos of tea and sandwiches. They sat, looking at the water, at the reflection of the clouds, at the slight ripple from the wind. "Kira, I want to ask you something," Andre began, "but only if you're ready to answer. Do you see a future for us?" Kira thought about it. A year ago, she would have been terrified of such a question, seeing it as an attempt to tie her down, to restrict her. But now she understood that it was just a sincere question from a man who cared about her. "I don't know what will happen in a year or 5 years, but I know that I feel good with you now, and I want that to continue, without rush, without commitments that feel like pressure. Just together." Andre nodded. "That's enough for me." They sat by the lake until evening, talking, laughing, and simply enjoying the moment. Kira realized that for the first time in a long time, she felt truly free. Free from fear, from the past, from the shadow of Vernon Green. Returning home, Kira stopped by her parents' house. Her mother was preparing dinner, her father was reading the newspaper, and Arthur was sitting at his textbooks, an ordinary family scene that Kira had nearly lost. "Mom, I want to tell you thank you for saving me, for not being afraid to fight." Clarissa hugged her daughter. "I would do anything to make you happy. You are my daughter, my flesh and blood, and I will never let anyone hurt you." That evening, Kira returned to her apartment, the one she had rented after the divorce. Small, cozy, filled with her belongings, her energy. She made tea, sat by the window, and looked at the city lights. Life went on. There was much unknown ahead, but now she wasn't afraid. She knew she would manage. She had gone through hell and emerged stronger. As for Vernon Green, he was never found. The search formally continued, but the chances of success were slim. Perhaps he was somewhere far away, building a new life under a false name. Or perhaps his past caught up with him, and he got what he deserved. Kira no longer thought about him. He no longer occupied space in her mind or her heart. Time heals. These words became not just a phrase for Kira, but a truth. Every day she grew a little stronger, a little more confident. She learned to say no, to protect her boundaries, and not to feel guilty for other people's problems. She learned to love herself. And while a wedding with Andre wasn't planned yet, Kira knew that if it ever happened, it would only be on her terms, only when she was completely ready. No pressure, no rush, just love, respect, and trust. Everything she had lacked before. Life went on, and it was beautiful. You know, when I look back at that perfect maroon dress and the pot roast I cooked that night, I realize how easily we can be fooled by appearances. We crave that stability, that security for our children so much that we sometimes miss the quiet signs, the tight grip, the forced smile, the note hidden in a glove. But this story isn't about being fooled. It's about what happens when you decide to stop being silent. Kira found her voice, Iris found her freedom, and we, as a family, found a strength we didn't know we had. The biggest lesson I learned? Never, ever be afraid to fight for your loved ones. Don't let fear keep you quiet, because silence is the price we pay for ruined lives. Freedom isn't just something you wait for. It's something you actively take back. Seeing my daughter, happy, confident, and making her own choices now? That's the most beautiful, happy ending a mother could ask for. If you agree with me and liked my story, show it by sending a like to the video. Let's see our numbers. I'm curious, from which city and at what time are you listening to me? Write it in the comments. If you want to support me on my journey, you can send me a small donation. Thank you for listening and sharing your valuable time with me. For more life stories like this, you can check out the other videos on my channel and subscribe. There are 2 new life stories on screen that I'm sure will interest you. You can click on one of them and listen right away. With love.